Hello, my intrepid band of O-Satters, and welcome to this, the latest episode of the Sockmatician podcast. That's me, I am Sockmatician, also known as Nathan Taylor. You can find me as Sockmatician on Ravelry, Instagram, Twitter, and here on YouTube. How have you been? Thank you to everybody who has sent me wishes of good health recently. My health problems seem to be disappearing. I've been backwards and forwards to the hospital getting different blood tests and chest x-rays, all of which come back clear. First round of blood test results came back saying that I was a little bit deficient in folic acid and some vitamin D, so I was a bit anemic, which is all part and parcel of a sort of suppressed immune system, and that my white blood cell count was high, so clearly fighting off some kind of major infection. I could have said all of that without any kind of blood tests. I knew I had a chest infection. But it's good to know that I wasn't just crazy, and it wasn't all psychosomatic. So I'm taking some supplements, and I've been back for another round of blood tests to check to see if I have glandular fever, which our American friends call mono, or something called CMV, which is another type of viral infection I'd never even heard of. I get the results of that tomorrow. I'm feeling so much better, so I don't think it's anything sinister like that. But thank you to everyone who has sent good wishes. It's been really lovely to know that there's people out there who are not worried, but who care, and that's always lovely. The lighting here is a little bit strange today. I've got my electric lights on. It's a little bit later in the day than I would normally want to be podcasting. It's 10 to 6 in the evening, and although it's a beautiful evening outside, the main bulk of the sun has gone. So this is going to be a flying by the seat of my pants podcast. I hope that's okay. I have written down no notes. I kind of know what I want to say. I hope I don't miss anything out, and it'll probably be a little bit shorter, famous last words, than usual, just because I don't have a great deal of time at the moment, and it's the editing that really takes the time, so I'm probably going to keep this fairly short so I can just get it out as quickly as possible. I say that, I do like to witter on, as you all know. So, in terms of Roundup, what's been going on? Well, life is incredibly busy at the moment, mostly on the secret filming project, which will forever and always and after be known as The Secret Filming Project. Look, there they are, my lovely little air quotes, aren't they everyone's friend? Blah. The Secret Filming Project, which Ben and I are working on. Watch this space, because it won't be too much longer before we are allowed to announce what it is. The people who are making the programme are planning to announce, I think, at the beginning of December, so there's not a huge length of time away, so I'll be able to talk about it in detail then. But suffice it to say, not only is it incredibly scary and incredibly exciting, it's incredibly time consuming. Ben and I are going into the production offices to start most days at about 10 o'clock, but we're often not getting home, and we're not leaving there till 8 o'clock, sometimes 9 o'clock. Last Friday, so a week ago Friday, I haven't said the date, it's Sunday the 13th today, 13th of September. A week ago Friday we had a long day of films, a 13-hour filming day. Most of the stuff that we're doing is not filming, most of the stuff is sort of the preparations and the work that goes on in the background, and that's peppered with days in front of the camera. So there's a mixture of all sorts of things going on. It's, as I say, it's incredibly exciting. It can be really frustrating. What's most frustrating is I desperately want to be able to talk to people about it. I haven't even told my mum what it is. She knows that something's afoot, and she keeps coming up to me and she says, well, I'm not going to ask, I've been very good at desperately trying to get me to say what's going on. And I want to share it with you guys as well. And if I belch like that throughout this podcast, I have just had my tea. I had a lovely pasta with tomato and basil filled ravioli, and some tomato and basil sauce with some grated cheddar cheese and some grated parmesan cheese. So for any of you who are wondering, that's what I had for tea. So it is frustrating, because part of what we're doing is a big experiment, and to be governed by the rules of the experiment can be quite restrictive for the way that Ben and I would normally work. So it's interesting. I mean, it's beyond interesting. It is incredibly fascinating, and I can't wait to share. So apologies that talking about stuff that we can't know about, or I can't let you know about, that's irritating beyond belief, but it is also irritating for me too, because I am desperate to want to share it with you. So other than that, that's taking up most of my time. It really is. Long days every day, and then every now and then I get a chance to do something else. Last Monday, Ben and I went to the theatre, and we went to see Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's on at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, which has a lot of special, very special memories for me. Theatre Royal Drury Lane is where Miss Saigon used to be many years ago, and that was the first show that I ever did in the West End. I was only about 6 months out of drama college, and it was the most exciting thing in the world to be working at one of the most famous theatres in the UK, perhaps even in the world. And it is such a beautiful theatre. It's huge. It's about 2,200 seats, something like that. And Miss Saigon was a show on epic proportions, as a theatre like that requires. I think there's no point having something with rubbish production values, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was no exception. It's a massive set, big full-scale production. Unfortunately, it didn't quite hit the mark for me, and that's a real shame. Ben and I are looking into what we like about musical theatre, and sort of trying to analyse and quantify stuff, because that's helping us with our other projects. So we're kind of looking at theatre through the lenses of what we're dealing with at the moment, and it just, for example, I like a show that starts with a good high energy number, something that sort of immediately transports you into the world of the musical, gets you into the convention of we're in a musical and people are singing and that's okay, and it sort of immediately sweeps you away and wraps you around and immerses you in the world that the show is trying to create. Now, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it starts very low key. There's one little boy, the actor was probably about 10 years old, one little boy sitting in a rubbish dump where he lives. It's a bit of a change from the book I remember, and just singing this very, very downbeat, sad song about how awful his life is, and it didn't grab people's attention. So much so, there was a woman sitting, there was an empty seat next to me here, but the woman on the other side of that empty seat, she spent the first 5 to 10 minutes of the show texting on her phone. I was livid. It was so bright. She didn't even have the setting on the phone that says when it's dark, the screen is dimmer. It was so bright and so distracting, and she'd keep putting it down and looking at it when a reply came in, and it just kept flashing in my face, really taking me out of the world that the show was trying to create. And eventually one of the ushers came down the aisle and sort of whispered across to her and said, "Excuse me, you can't be on the phone, put it away." And the woman sort of put the phone face down, watched while the usher disappeared up the aisle again, and then just turned her phone over again and started typing. That was too much. I leant over to her and I tapped her on the arm and I said, "I'm sorry, that's incredibly distracting. Will you please put it away?" And she did, in fairness. She said something. She was kind of looking at me like I was the aggressor, but she did put it away. So very politely and warmly, I thanked her. I said, "Thank you very much." But not sarcastically like that came across. I actually said, "Thank you," as if she had done it with good grace, which she didn't. But that was the last we saw of the phone, so I was glad of that. Now, the show was enjoyable. I really did. I was entertained. The music's not brilliant. The sets are fantastic, and there were some great performances in it. But it was, I just felt that they'd lost the real sense of childhood innocence and magic that's in the original book. And I know lots of people have different views on this book because the film, the Gene Wilder film, is so popular. I think the film is great. I think it's a terrible adaptation of the book. They changed too much, and I know that Roald Dahl had problems with that as well. Rightly so. He'd written a beautiful story and it got changed. I know. Here's a thought. I love this story. let's make it into a film, but let's not tell that story. I just sort of failed to see the logic behind that that mind process. So it wasn't brilliant. We had a good time. It was good to see it, and we saw some friends there. What was very, very peculiar was while we were there in the interval, a friend of mine who I've seen occasionally over the years, but I haven't seen him for about 2 years, came over to me. It's a Canadian friend called Davor Golub, and what was so weird about seeing him in that setting, in that building, it was he and I shared a dressing room together when we were doing Miss Saigon in that building. And that was in 1996, so we're going back 19 years, and it was so random to bump into him. He was watching the show as well, and I saw him there. It was lovely to see him. We only had a few minutes to chat, and he was with some friends and he couldn't stay, but it was lovely to sort of wander down that nostalgia trip, and having such a familiar face from that environment, in that environment, was remarkable. So that was fun. And then more theatre. I've been quite lucky. I went to see another show yesterday. Ben and I drove down to Newbury, to the Watermill in Newbury, to see their current production of Oliver. And it's directed by a friend of ours, and we went to see it to support him. He wasn't there, but we wanted to see his work. And it's a beautiful space. The Newbury Watermill is tiny, probably only holds about 200, and it is a converted watermill. It's out in the middle of the countryside, and on the lawns where you go out, there's no sort of foyer area to sit at the bar. Everything's kind of outside, so you go out into the gardens, and there's ducks and geese wandering around, and hens just coming around your feet while you're eating your ice cream and having your little drink. And what was lovely is they started Act 2 outside, so the Papa song, Papa, Papa, that's how it goes, you know the one. All the cast, they were all active musicians, so there was no fixed orchestra. They were all playing their own instruments throughout the show, and so they all came out with their instruments and set up in the middle of the garden. Nancy appeared on a sort of balcony over the way, mic'd up thankfully, because otherwise we'd never have heard her. She was miles away, but she started singing and sort of came towards us and joined the company. And then we all sort of piled back into the theatre, and Act 2 started. It was a really lovely use of the space, really, really nice. And it was a lovely sunny day, and it was I'm assuming, I must talk to my friend about this, but I'm assuming that if it's raining, they have an alternative version an alternate version. Oh gosh, there's one from a grammar rant. My brain's not working. I can't remember the proper difference and distinction between alternate and alternative. Don't write in, I'll have looked it up by the time I've edited this. They had another version, I'm assuming they have another version for when it's raining, so that they can do it on the stage as you normally would. But it's really nice to see it outside. And from there, this was last night, this was a matinee, we drove further west to go to a place called Malmesbury in Wiltshire, because a friend of ours, Rosie Archer, who was in Ben's production of Brass with the NYMT last year, she played the second female lead. She's starting drama college this year. She's 22, and she's doing a 1-year course in Wales, and she's had to do all her fundraising herself to put herself there. She's not from a wealthy background, and she's determined to make a go of this, and her fees and for her rent and accommodation and some money to live on through the year, she needs £25,000. That's a lot of money. And she's raised nearly all of it. She starts in about a week. She's about £2,000 or £3,000 short, I think, at the moment. So she had decided to put on a concert in Malmesbury Abbey. Now, Malmesbury Abbey is incredibly beautiful. Apparently it sort of fell down in like 1500s, or part of it fell down in the 1500s, and they spent several hundred years putting it back together again. So when you look at it from the outside, you can see bits that kind of look unfinished. It looks like a ruin that's in current use. There's one area where there's sort of empty window arches that just look through to the sky, not from the inside, but inside the bit that is currently in use is all enclosed and is all in good order. And the main entrance is this Norman arch. I mean, it dates back to the 12th century. It's quite an extraordinary building. And Rosie's dad is the vicar of Malmesbury Abbey. So what a brilliant space for her. So she must have had probably getting on for 200 people there, and she laid on lovely nibbles and food and drinks which we could buy to supplement. It was not so much charity. We got a cracking good concert out of it. She's a very talented young lady, and for anyone who has bought the brass CD, she sings the main song, Shone with the Sun, and she sang it in the concert last night. I suspect that song's going to become a signature song for her throughout her life, because she's the first person to have performed it as part of the show. She's the one who's singing it on the soundtrack. It's going to follow her around, and I think that'll always be a source of pride for her. She loves the song, and as do I. It is beautiful. And it was just really, really lovely. She did a whole selection of stuff from musical theatre to jazz standards, well-known songs. She did a cracking version of Cry Me a River, which was really lovely. She sang Fish Gotta Swim, Birds Gotta Fly from Showboat. And what else did she do? She sang, her big finale number was And I'm Telling You from Dreamgirls. She knocked it out of the park. It was really, really exciting. If you don't know that song, look up Jennifer Holliday singing it. Jennifer Hudson sang it in the film, and won an Oscar for her performance as it. But if you really want to see how that song is done, look up Jennifer Holliday singing it. She sang it originally. If you can find the performance of the 1982 Tonys where she sang that song, whoo, it's quite an extreme performance. And Rosie did a fabulous job. She was joined by another brass alumnus, her friend Jack Reitman, who sang a couple of songs with her and sang Anthem from Chess, which is one of my favourite songs. I've sung that song so many times in concerts and various auditions and things. It's a brilliant song, written by Benny and Bjorn from ABBA, of course. And a good time was had by all. We thoroughly enjoyed the concert and set off to drive home. Malmesbury is stunningly beautiful. Look it up. Malmesbury, there's the spelling there. Look up some pictures of it. It's so quaint and so attractive. It's such a very, very pretty little town. Yeah, I loved it. I'd never been before, and I would certainly go again and recommend other people to go and have a little visit there. There's a beautiful sort of like market cross just outside the abbey with, it looks like a crown, all these stone buttresses that work their way in up into this sort of top little cross section. Absolutely gorgeous. And on the way home I wasn't very well. I don't know where it came from, and I'm sorry if you're eating your tea, but we'd set off and we hadn't been on the road very long, and I said to Ben, we're going to need to pull over as soon as we find somewhere that looks like it might have a bathroom. That's for you American friends. A toilet is what I meant. And then we did find somewhere, which was just as well because things were getting urgent, and then we had to stop again. So apologies for anyone who thinks that's distasteful, but you know, I like to share. Since then I've been absolutely fine. It's just seemed to be a very brief episode. I'm glad to report, and I'm sure you're glad to hear. I said this was going to be fine by the seat of my pants. That's what I felt I was doing on the way home last night. And that brings us pretty much up to date. So that's my roundup. It's busy, and we're back in the offices tomorrow doing stuff on the filming project, and it just keeps going. So wish me well. In terms of community, I haven't done the preparation for this episode deliberately. I haven't done, because sometimes it takes so long to trawl through everything, and so I'm actually going to give a miss this week to awarding one of Joyce's fabulous Stuff for the Boys stitch markers. I'll pick that up again on the next episode. There's still plenty left. I just haven't really had time to go through the forums on my group and check everything. But please do keep popping in there. What's lovely is people are starting to chat amongst themselves a bit more, because I have felt recently it's been a little bit that someone would comment to me and I would respond, and that's sort of where it would end. But I'm loving the fact there's a bit more of a community spirit there, which is nice. and people are chatting to each other and asking each other questions and answering and giving advice, the more we can get that going, the more active the group will be, the more useful it will be, I think, because I don't always get the chance to go in there every day, and if someone's looking for something in a bit of a hurry, then somebody else can sort of help them out, and that would be brilliant. So please feel free to do as much of that sort of thing as you like. It's your group. It's kind of through this podcast, but it's a group for its members to use. I don't want it just to be seen as a portal where people can contact me. I mean, that's a perfectly valid thing for it to be as well, but I don't want it to be just that. I'd much rather it was something that where you all took ownership and became your own little community, because it's what is lovely is I'm seeing the same few faces and getting to know people's avatars and chatting to people, which I'm really, really loving, and that's growing all the time, which is great. Let's just cross-pollinate a bit. Talking of cross-pollination, I was watching the Bakery Bears podcast with Dan and Kay recently, and two very, very familiar names popped up in the same episode. It was Julie No Jules Jukes and Ferran Moreno. Ferran, tell me, you explained to me that it's not Ferran, it's Ferran, but is it Marino or Moreno or Moreno? Both of these people were mentioned on the Bakery Bears podcast, and I suddenly got this awful feeling that the podcasting world isn't as big as everyone likes to think. I feel that I still get new subscribers on YouTube, but it's sort of plateaued. It's over 2,000 subscribers now, which is quite remarkable, and hello to all of you. When I first did this, I was thinking, well, no one's going to watch, and maybe I'll get, I don't know, 100 or so people watching, but it's not that. It's so much more than that, which is very gratifying. But then I thought, well, there must be a finite number of people around the world who are interested in knitting, who also like podcasting, who also have the time, who also discover the same people. But we do all seem to watch the same podcast, and I just thought, well, maybe there's only podcasters, and all we're doing is serving our own selves and watching each other. I sometimes feel this about the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. There's so many shows up there, so many small-scale, tiny things. Everyone is desperately trying to push their own shows and bring in an audience. And sometimes it feels like the only people that go to Edinburgh these days are the people who are there doing a show, trying to promote their own shows, and don't really have the time to go and see other people's shows or the money, which means that sort of all these shows happen. Nobody makes any money. The only people that benefit are the venues who are hosting and charging rent for the shows to be there for the festival. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be awful if that was the case with the podcasting community? And then I thought, no, that wouldn't be awful. Do you know what? If there's only 2,000 of us out there, and I know it's a few more because other podcasters have higher numbers as well, but if there is a finite number of people out there and we are all just entertaining each other, we're entertaining each other. And that's brilliant, right? That's what it's all for. That's why we started doing it in the first place. So I have a couple of questions, really. This is all off the top of my head. I don't even know where this is going today, and if it feels a little bit rambly, then it just is. But with going on from sort of podcasters all watching each other, there are a few that I watch very, very regularly, and some others that I dip in and out of. And some that I know watch me, and some I have no idea whether they do or don't. But for the ones that I know do watch me, I've got some questions. Tilly, this is for you, Tilly Trout of the Trout Mail group on Ravelry and the Tilly Trout podcast. I don't know if you know this, Tilly. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Ben, my lovely husband, every night, almost without fail, nearly every night, when we get into bed, last thing at night, I hear this little voice saying, "Where's Tilly?" And I have to open up the iPad and put on one of your podcast episodes because he likes the sound of your voice. He finds you very restful, calming and soothing. And sometimes He doesn't even but look at the screen. Sometimes he's just listening as he drifts off to sleep, and sometimes he'll sort of pop his head up to look around mine so that he can look at the screen to see what it is you're talking about. But you are absolutely Ben's favourite podcaster. So I have a question for you. I know why I started this podcast. I wanted to build a community and raise awareness of me as a brand and as a designer. So it started off really with me partly having stuff I wanted to flog and partly wanting to give something back because I didn't want it to be just about that. Now, you're not a designer, although you are, because I've seen you putting together your own stuff and you were going on your designer course. So in your heart, I know you are a designer. But I'd love to know what inspired you to start podcasting. Because you're not trying to sell anything. You're not trying to sort of do the things that I was trying to do with mine. Don't get me wrong, I'm incredibly glad you do, because otherwise Ben would never sleep. And he loves the calming tone of your voice. So what was it? What inspired you to want to podcast, and where did it come from? And I have a question as well for James Bartley of Dancing Geek. My question for you, James, is obviously you're a total geek when it comes to maths, we know this, but with such a passion for maths, did you ever feel that you were heading for a career in maths, something where you'd use your degree, or was the dancing something you just got sidetracked by, or was it a very definite change of direction? Was there a reason why you didn't pursue a career in maths? I'd be interested to know, because obviously it's a big part of your life. And that's sort of that for the community aspect of things. Oh, it's not. I have a massive thanks to shout out. This is thanks to Sharon in California, who is Skippy on Ravelry. It's right here. I was talking in my group. I think it was the group, not on here, but I was talking somewhere about the fact that I was envious because the current issue of Vogue Knitting, which features my 42nd and Lexington shawl, was hitting the shops in the US and wasn't here yet. And I was envious of people who were out buying, because I hadn't seen it. They hadn't sent me a copy. And I was really looking forward to getting a chance to see it. Well, Sharon very, very kindly picked up a copy for me and has sent it to me. And here it is, so I can share it with you now. Look at this, everybody. This is Vogue Knitting, and this is a full 2015 episode, The Teal Deal. And I mean, that's quite a complicated piece of knitting there. Love a bit of cabling. That looks great. And all the patterns, they're marvellous. There are some really, really great ones in here. Some which are sort of really, really simple and elegant. I love the lines of this one. I think the sort of the diagonal way the stitches work, and yet how it fits so nice. I think that's beautiful. All very good. And this one's great as well. This is by another male designer, Knitboy1 on Ravelry. I forget the name, John, I think. I'm not sure. But I love this. I love all the textures and the different shapes. And then we get to the back. And we get into there's a whole black and white section called graphic content. You can see these kind of things going on. Some really nice stuff. And then you get to the double knitting section. And we've got Tanya Richter's lovely birdwing shawl there, looking fab. Moving on to Michael Dworjan's lace and cable shawl, which is really eccentric, and the lace section is really, really special. I love that. Then going over 2 pages, we get to Alistair Postquin's brilliant hat. 2 slightly different versions there. One with a larger distance between brim and design, and one with a shorter distance, but really, really nicely done. You can see again, it's all done with shaping rather than actual colour work. So it's the diagonal lines are formed by the directions that the stitches are flowing in because of increases and decreases. It's very, very clever. And then we get to, look at that, ba, 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 ba. That is 42nd and Lexington. I could not be more proud to see it in print. I really, really love it. This blurb down the side here, those are my words. That's the description and the information that I wrote for them at Vogue, and I'm delighted that they put it in. And it says here, Chrysler, shall I read it out to you? Why not? Chrysler is an Art Deco paradise of clean lines, shiny surfaces, jewelled windows, and this shawl, which I call 42nd and Lexington, is no different. I've tried to incorporate as many features from the famous tower as I can. The shawl is made of 5 segments, each emanating from a single point. And it goes on to describe a little bit about the construction. I'm not going to go into too much detail there. But what I love about this picture here on this face is that you get to see the outside of the shawl, which is what I call its daytime persona, and the inside of the shawl all in one go. And you get a chance to see how the lace panels work as well. All these little white dots, they're holes through the lacy panel of the windows of the Chrysler building. So I'm very, very delighted. Sharon, thank you so much for sending this. Not only did it mean I get to see it a little bit earlier, but also it's not called Vogue Knitting in this country, it's called designer knitting. So to have it with a copy with the Vogue branding on it, for me that's very special. So thank you very much. And I believe that Sharon is going to be is knitting it. She's already chosen her yarns. I say I believe. I know she's going to be knitting my shawl, and I cannot wait to see it. I have a request to everybody who's watching this podcast. Now, the lovely people at Vogue Knitting, when they put all the patterns up on Ravelry, this is really cheeky. I'm doing something a little bit naughty, and I'm asking you to be complicit in it. So I hope you don't mind, and I hope you'll all get on with it, because it'd be brilliant if we can make this work. This is purely for my vanity. When they put all the patterns from this edition up on Ravelry, I guess they ran out of time. And the day they released it all the patterns went up, apart from mine and Michael's, the other lace shawl. And I felt a little bit snubbed. And I was like, oh, maybe they're not going to put it on. Maybe, I don't know. A good sense prevailed, and I realised they just run out of time. So I waited, and the next day, Michael's pattern went up, mine didn't. And the day after that, mine went up as well. But the problem was, I sort of missed the boat. I think the bulk of people who were excited and interested went straight to that page on day one and probably haven't been back. They saw the patterns that they liked, and they didn't get a chance to see mine. And I'm choosing to believe that this is why my pattern on the Vogue Knitting page has got a very small number of favourites. I can't bear to think it might be because no one actually likes it. So I would love it if you could all race over to Ravelry, go to the page. I'll put in the link here at the bottom anyway so you can see it, and I'll leave it there for a while. And just go to my shawl and hit favourite. By all means, favourite other people's if you like them too. I'm not trying to sway things. Mine looks a little bit sad and lonely. And it's got no projects. I haven't had a chance to put mine up yet, but some of the others have got 5 or 6 projects already and mine hasn't. And I know it's a big issue. It's a big shawl. There's a lot of it and it might be a little bit daunting, but it's not actually that difficult. It's just quite a big time commitment. So if anybody does want to start knitting it, make me very happy. You make this little podcast to feel very happy. The reason I did it the way I did was because of this word here. You know, I really wanted to push the boat out, and I wanted to come up with something that was new and innovative and attractive, but something that represented me as a person, as a designer. And I think I've managed to pull that off. I worry though that people may look at it and think it's beyond them. It's not. All the information is there in the pattern. It's mostly charted. Well, it's not. There are some charts, but if I find them for you, it's not even that. The chart's not even that big. Those are my charts. There you are. Quick flash. You're not allowed to see them for very long. I won't focus in on them. So there's not much of it really. There's not much that's complicated. So I just want people to make it. I want people to enjoy it. I figured that surely the place where knitters who like a challenge hang out is here. And then I didn't get put up on the page. This is a proper. These are my issues. I'm completely aware of that. I'm completely aware of the fact that I am asking you all to pander to my own insecurities. But please, will you pander to my insecurities? Head over to Ravelry and press favourite. You'll make me very happy. So, stash enhancement is going to be next. I'm not doing this in any particular order. Until today, there was nothing to show you. Nothing at all, in fact. I did have one piece of stash enhancement. It was a gift from my Auntie Sheila, who I met up with, I'm sitting on a table with at my cousin Catherine's wedding that I sang at a couple of months ago. And she was talking, she's a knitter, not an avid knitter the way some of us are, but she's an occasional knitter, and certainly can do it. And she was telling me about this particular scarf kit that came. It's a particular type of yarn, and I didn't get what she was describing. And then I went to visit my mum last weekend. Oh, that's more for the roundup. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And she handed me this gift. She'd seen Auntie Sheila, and she'd given me this scarf kit. The yarn isn't what I expected at all. From Auntie Sheila's description, it really isn't what I was expecting. It's got a little sort of, it looks like a web mesh, like a ribbon really, with tiny little pom-poms dangling from it. Does that make sense? It's the kind of thing that you'd expect to see around the fringe of an old brocade lampshade or something like that. But you knit with it apparently, and it'll make something that's very thick and chunky. It looks like an absolute nightmare to knit with. I haven't tried it yet, and I've left it at my mum's house, so I left by mistake without it. So I don't have it to show. But Auntie Sheila, you don't watch, but thank you. It won't be something I'll be making for myself. It's really, really not for me. But I will enjoy working with it. And do you know what? Here we go. I will knit this scarf, and I will give it away as a prize on this podcast. How about that? Then it will go to one worthy and deserving recipient who will enjoy it more than I will be able to. So, the other bit of the roundup, last weekend, Ben and I drove up to my sister's house. It's the first time I've been there. She moved a couple of months ago, and it's in Cheshire, and it's about a 3-hour drive from here, so it's not somewhere I can just pop to every afternoon. And the reason we were going will become apparent shortly, but there was my dad and my stepmother were there, my mum was there, my sister, her partner, her 3 children, and her granddaughter, my great niece. And was that everybody? I think it was. And we had a lovely dinner, and it was just Julius, my sister's partner, is a builder by trade, and he's built this house. He bought a plot of land and they built the house. And it's only a temporary stopgap for them because there's another plot of land next door, and he's building another house, so they're going to build on that one, live in this one while they're doing it, move out, sell one, make a lot of money and retire to the country. So that's the plan, and it sounds like a very useful plan to me as well. So we went up there, and it was really, really strange actually. It was, my sister's lived in a little village in North Wales for 15 years, and not to be going there seemed strange. I'll never have any reason to go there again. And so that was a big chunk of life that's now in the past. And it was really strange because Sam and Julius haven't been together for even as much as 2 years, maybe about 18 months now. And she obviously has built up a whole lifetime of things and possessions. And walking into a house which was half of these familiar things to me and half of Julius's stuff come together, it was really odd because it's a beautiful house, don't get me wrong, it's really, really nicely done, but it was alien and familiar in equal measure, and it made me feel a bit odd actually. And part and parcel of that is that's all wrapped up in parcel. That's all wrapped up in the fact that I'm not going to see my sister now until after she's married. She flew out yesterday to start the trip of a lifetime. She and Julius are big bikers. They both own and ride Harley Davidsons and love them. And they've flown over to America to pick up some Harley Davidsons there and do Route 66, towards the end of which they will be in Las Vegas. They'll be picked up by a limousine, taken out to the Grand Canyon, where they will get married at sunset in the Valley of Fire. Wow. Then they're going to get back on their Harleys and finish up in LA, having done pretty much the whole of Route 66 on their Harleys. They're over there for about 3 weeks, I think. All of this is including a trip up to Toronto from Chicago, where they landed to visit Julius's daughter. So it's the trip of a lifetime, and it's wonderful. I mean, it really, really is. It's wonderful that they gave a chance to do it. A big part of it, and again, gosh, this is whingy podcast. I'm a big fat old whinger, and I apologise for that. But I genuinely felt sad. I feel sad that I'm not going to be there when they get married. She's been married before, twice before, and I was at both of those. So I sang at the first one. I was a big part of that, and Sam was a big part of my wedding when I married Ben. And it just feels, I don't know, I do feel sad that I'm not going to be able to share it with them. Aside from the fact it's going to be an amazing experience, but I'd like to be there. But what she is going to do, which is going to be amazing, is she's going to... We have a family tradition. My mum's side of the family, we're very close. There's lots of them. She's one of 7 children, and we've got hundreds of cousins. And every year at Christmas, we can't all be together. Of course we can't. We're all in our own homes with our own families doing our own things. But at 3 o'clock, which, if you're not in England, you won't know this, but the Queen makes a speech on the television every year on Christmas Day at 3 p.m. And at the moment the Queen first comes onto the screen, we raise a toast. And we raise a toast to our family members, present and not. And it's always incredibly emotional, because we all know that wherever we are around the country, we are all thinking of each other at exactly the same time. We've all got exactly the same point of reference. It doesn't matter what time your clock is set, when the Queen comes on the television, we toast. And it's nothing to do with royalism. I happen to like the Queen, other members of my family do not. It's nothing to do with that. We don't really listen to the content of her speech, it's not about that. We just toast to each other and think of each other, and we think of people who are no longer with us. And it's really, really emotional, and there's often tears shed. It's a really powerful, emotionally bonding thing. So drawing from this, knowing that there's such a network of people who do this, my sister is going to, when she knows sort of finalised timings and stuff, she's going to set a particular time where people in Australia, the East Coast of America, and in England, because that's Julius's daughters live in America, England and Australia, can all be thinking about them and maybe raising a glass to them at the same time. So for some people it's going to be first thing in the morning, for us it's going to be last thing at night, and for them it's going to be in the evening. But we're all going to be thinking of them and wishing them well with their wedding plans at the same time. So I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. It's going to be quite emotional then again, I think. So that's a bit more of the roundup. So into stash. As I said, there was no stash apart from that, which I can't even show you because it's not here. I'll show you that one I've knitted with it. And until today, there was no stash either. But I went over to Wild and Woolly, which is the lovely shop in northeast London, run by Anna Feldman. Hello, Anna. This is where I did my double knitting workshop a couple of months ago. And actually next weekend, next Sunday on the 20th, I'm going to be holding a brioche workshop as well. Now Anna and I have been trying to... I'm picking my fingers. Anna and I have been trying... Look, there's a really annoying little... Can you see just there? it's not like a blister, it's like a bit that's rubbed off, and I just wanted to tidy it up. I can't help myself. I'm sorry, it's who I am. So Anna and I have been trying to get together to talk about the finer points of what the workshop will involve and what it should be about, how much we think I can cover in the time, and we just haven't been able to. Life's been too busy she's been away and I've been working, and we just haven't been able to work our schedules together. So we left it, and we just get around to it at some point. So I thought, well, bums to it, I'll just get in the car and I'll go. So she's open on a Sunday. So I just turned up. And I knew there's other things as well. I had some admin I needed to take care of with her. I owed her some money, actually. So I wanted to pay that off, because I don't like owing people money. And for some yarn that she had sent to me and I hadn't got a chance to pay her for. So I sorted that out. And while we were there, we talked about the workshop, and we were getting really excited about it now. It was full, but one person has had to drop out, so there is one place currently available at the time of recording. So if you are interested, then give Anna a call or email the shop, and maybe she hasn't filled it yet, I don't know. So we chatted about that, which is going to be very, very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to that. And then I knew that I wanted to get some stuff. So you've seen my black and green shawl, which is for the whips. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, but I bought some more. I knew I wasn't going to finish it, so I bought some more of the DK alpaca from Artisano. Oh, the skeins come undone. So I've got this lovely green. It's Artisano 100% DK alpaca, which is very, very lovely. It's incredibly warm. It's quite hairy, as you'll see, because I'll be showing the whip later on. And I got the black as well, because these are the colours I'm making the scarf in. These are for my second niece's Christmas present this year, and I'll talk about that later. So I bought those. I knew I wasn't going to have quite enough from what I bought already, so I'm hoping that this will now do the job. So that's that. But I also wanted to get some yarn for a hat. Now, this is a hat I've already made, my own design, and I'm not quite happy with it. So I think I've shown it before, but this is the Drakkar hat. And it's based on a pair of socks that I designed, also called Drakkar. I call it Drakkar, it's actually Drakkar, which is Swedish for dragon. And this is, so the zigzags in the different directions kind of remind me, on the sock they reminded me of a dragon's tail, that's why I called it Drakkar. And sort of on the crown, I wasn't happy with the crown, it gets too messy and too busy. Actually on here it looks horrendous. I don't know, it doesn't look quite that bad, it looks like a mess, and that's why I'm redesigning it. I just did the decreases too quickly, it just sort of suddenly goes whoop, across the top, and I wasn't happy with it at all. I also have this, people are always picking stuff off their knitting. Have you noticed this on podcasts? Everyone's like, oh, showing it and picking bits of fluff off it. I also have, you see this zigzag goes right down into the brim. Well, I want to make it so that it should be a turned up brim, and if you turn it up, unfortunately those cables don't work, because that's the inside. So I'm going to reverse those. I'm going to make it so you can turn the brim up and you'll still see the zigzags, and then you'll get into the main body of the pattern, which will stay exactly the same. I'm very happy with the way that's come out, but I'm going to then just do the decreases on the crown a little bit less severely. I think that's a good way of describing it. So, but I love the fact that it's only, this is just knits and pearls, and then this is also knits and pearls, but that's ribbing. These are rows of knits and pearls in between these little 1/1 cables that work their way across. It's really fun. I'm not sure whether it's the hat that I love it, I really do, and it matches the socks perfectly well. I'm not sure whether it should be something openly to be more of a beanie. I'm not sure the hats suit me. This is what I'm not sure about. This is why I kept starting that and not finishing the sentence. I don't think hats suit me, but it's nice and warm and snug. And essentially, I was thinking about my knitting the other day. I've not had a great deal of time for knitting, and this morning, not the other day at all. See, I'm not thinking properly today. This morning I was thinking to myself, I need a quicker project. Much as I love my big massive scarves, and I'm never going to stop knitting them, the pile is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I do still love doing them, and will always do, but actually I wanted some quick gratification. And I thought, time to revisit Drakkar and sort that one out, because a few people who've seen this before have liked it enough to want to knit the pattern, but I'm not happy with it enough to be able to send it out yet. So there's my ravioli. So I will be sorting this out and getting on with it very quickly, but that took me to the main reason I wanted to go to Wild and Woolly today, which was to buy some yarn. And I wanted to go on here. This looks like a very, very blue yarn. It's actually sort of greeny, tealy blue. Interesting, this episode, the teal deal, well, that would have worked out rather well, I think, if I'd been going for that kind of thing. But I want to go green because of the dragon connection. And I looked at lots of different yarns, and I've never knitted with Malabrigo Rios before. So here it is. Look at this, isn't that just lovely? And that's a pretty good colour representation on screen, actually, I'm pleased to report. So I'm well, the hairy bits. So I'm really happy with that. It's called Ivy. It's 138 Ivy in the Malabrigo Rios. It is, Rio means river in Spanish, and Rios is named after the 4 major rivers in Uruguay. Rio, I'm not even going to begin to pronounce them because I'll get it all wrong, but there you go, you can have a look at that there. Freeze frame on that one if you want to read the whole thing in full. But it's 100% superwash merino. It's about 210 yards per 100 grams, and I think it's going to work really nicely, probably more nicely than this actually. So it'll be a good thing that this wasn't right, and this will be fabulous. And I think it's going to photograph really well, and I'm going to be a lot happier with it. It's a really, you can see the twist on that. It's really quite high twist, but there's good give in it. It's lofty, soft. It's not dense. It's really smooth, so I don't think it's going to cause any itch problems on the forehead. I sometimes get itchy on my forehead when I'm wearing hats. I think this is going to be fabulous, and I can't wait. So hopefully by the next time I speak to you, the hat will be ready to go. Oh, more of my roundup that I forgot to tell you. So this is just a peppered roundup throughout the episode. My health problems notwithstanding, Ben thinks that one of the reasons I've been so ill and so unable to shake it off is because I've had problems with one of my teeth. And I think I spoke about this before. I needed root canal surgery, and I had it done on Friday. Now Ben thinks, and he might be right, I did bring this up with my endodontist who didn't seem to think that there was much of a link, but Ben seems to think that my immune system will be unable to fight off the chest and throat infections I've had because it's already low because of the infection that's in my tooth, which has been there for some months. And I've been putting it off because it's not a pleasant thing to go through, and it's expensive. I paid £700 to get my tooth fixed on Friday, which was not much fun. I was also led to believe it was going to take several hours, which I didn't relish the thought of at all. It actually was only about an hour and 20 minutes, which wasn't too bad, but it wasn't much fun. Now, I hadn't had any pain in the tooth. It didn't hurt me as such. I was aware of it because I could feel a throbbing, not a painful throb, just a pulse. So it was all like I could feel my heartbeat in my tooth down here. It's my lower left 7, if anyone needs to care, and so it's the second one from the back on the bottom. And if I sort of leant forward, I could feel sort of the pounding in my tooth. If I'd run up a hill or I'd been doing any exercise, then I could just feel this throbbing, but not painful. So I didn't think it was much of a big deal. Well, Dr. Mergrath, when he got in there, he used words like, "Oh, this one is what we call a bleeder," and bleeding an abnormally large amount. None of these are words that one wants to hear when you're like, oh, sat in the dentist chair, rubber dam across your mouth and can't speak and everything's numb and dribbling. But he seems to think that that's nothing major, it's just the level of inflammation was causing blood to rush to the area, which then got sort of trapped inside the root canal space, and when he was drilling through all the pulp, so gross, it all started bleeding. I was blissfully unaware of all of this, because I had this rubber dam in my mouth which stopped anything from going down my throat or me breathing anything. It also was really useful when I've not had many fillings before, but the couple I have had, my tongue is always in danger of sort of getting in the way. Well, because my mouth was entirely covered with this rubber sheet, which was just pushed down onto the tooth and with a little hole in it, clamped onto the tooth, my tongue couldn't get anywhere near it because the rubber dam was in the way. Brilliant. We had one little moment as he started to drill where I could feel things. I wasn't numb enough, so he went back in with the injections. I didn't feel anything else for the rest of the time there, which was very useful. Recovering was weird. I said to Ben, I came back, and he was actually doing some filming here with the people who were making the programme with us, and so they were all laughing at me. My lip was a bit swollen and a bit down here, and if I didn't think about it, this is how I was talking. But then I employed all of my training, and I brought in all of my knowledge of articulation and mouth control, and I was able to, with a lot of concentration, I was able to speak normally, but it took a great deal of effort. And then when I stopped making the effort, I started talking like that again. But I'd been given some antibiotics for the possible infection, or to get rid of the residual infection and to stop anything fresh from going in. And I've been told to take various painkillers for a few days to stop from the damage that he had done from hurting me. So I had about 3 tablets in my hand and a glass of water, and I took a sip of water, and of course it just sort of fell out of my mouth, which made everybody laugh. So I thought, well, rather than doing tablet one at a time and risking it, I'll put them all in together and drink it down. So of course I put them all, mouth entirely numb, tongue entirely numb, couldn't feel anything, couldn't feel the tablets. So I popped them in, took a drink of water, managed to swallow most of that, and then I had to say to Ben, "Are they gone?" I genuinely didn't know if I'd swallowed them or not. They could have been, one could have been stuck up here, and I wouldn't have known until my face came back to life. Which was not till about 3 hours later. You'd use a lot of anaesthetic. It was quite deep work. Blah, blah, and expensive. So let's move on, shall we, onto whips. Now, as I said, I haven't had a great deal of time for knitting at all this week. I have done work on my Peano number 2, which I'll get to in a minute. This is the scarf I showed last week, and this is the one that I bought the new yarn for. This is my... For people who haven't seen this before, maybe you've not watched my podcast before, this is a mixture of double knitting and brioche knitting, 2-colour brioche knitting, and it's all worked across the row in one pass. I have pioneered a way of doing 2-colour brioche knitting in one pass rather than having to work every row twice. And it's very, very similar to how I do double knitting, which is opening up doors for me, thinking, well, do you know what I think? Double knitting and 2-colour brioche are fraternally very close to each other. They really are kindred techniques. And most people, I think, who've done brioche in the past would never think about that because they're working with one yarn at a time. It doesn't have anything of the attributes of double knitting, but it really does. And one day I'll do a demonstration. Possibly I'll do a live one. I'm not going to do it now. But one day I'll get it something sorted out so I can film it properly and show you just how I get from one to the other. There will be tutorials going online anyway for when I release this pattern. But if you... There you go. Here's the texture of the brioche. It's just so lovely. Here we are. And then here's the double knitting, as you do imagine. So here we are with my little skull and crossbones motif with the eyes being holes. You can see they're shining in the background. You've seen this before, and you've seen it exactly like this. I have not touched it, I have not given it a second thought, I'm afraid. I haven't had the chance. So that one is still pending. As is the Poolie sock. I haven't done any more on this, but Dan, I'm rooting for you now. I'm firmly and squarely on Team Dan, which is no offence to Kay, who you know I adore, but this is for Bakery Bear's Dan Jones when he wins knit or forfeit on his own podcast with his lovely wife Kay. Her forfeit will be to knit with the pooliest yarn he can find, and I think this probably covers it. So if Dan wins, then I'll be ripping the sock out and sending the yarn. Actually, I might not even rip it out. Just to be really cruel, I might make Kay knit on it from the sock like it's a sock blank, which I know she hates. That's it, I've done it. She's not going to be my friend anymore after that. So again, I haven't done that, but that's not through laziness or time constraints. That's because I'm saving it for the finale of Knit or Forfeit on the Bakery Bears podcast. So what have I been knitting? Well, I have been working more on my Piano number 2 scarf, and here it is. It's getting much, much longer. It's still nowhere near long enough. I mean, it's... Hello. It's I could wear it as a scarf quite happily now, but I like a scarf that's longer than I am tall, and this one's only about 5.5 feet at the moment, and I'm 6 foot tall. So where were we last week? I promise I haven't moved the stitch marker from the ceremonial changing. It was down there, and you'll know that because if you look back, it's very close to where these yarn changes happened. So I've done all of this in the last less than 2 weeks. So that's not too bad, I don't think, particularly I haven't had much time. So let's now do the ceremonial moving of the stitch marker. Try not to belch at the same time and try not to pull any stitches. Thank you, shush, do you mind? This ceremonial stuff here is beeping outside my window, I can't bear it. When I'm trying to do something ceremonial. So here we are, moving it all the way up to there. And that's where it will stay, and I will be able to update you on progress. Now the repeat on this scarf is huge, it's a big, big chart, and it's actually... that is one repeat of the chart. It looks like it's more repetitive than that, but actually it does change and evolve as it goes along, so it's not as straightforward as you might imagine. No. Oh yeah, do you know, I'm not even going to edit that out because you know I don't. I thought my iPad had stopped recording. I don't know why, I couldn't see the timer on it. Oh, I see, because there's a white bit hiding. You don't need to know any of this, I apologise, back to the knitting. So this is one repeat. And at the moment I've done 1, 2, yeah, 2 to there, 3 to there, and nearly 4 to there. I'm coming towards the end of the 4th repeat. I think I'm going to, there's probably about that much to do before I get to the end of that repeat, and then I think I'll do a whole other one. So I'm nearly 80% of the way through this scarf, and I'm still loving it. I'm really enjoying knitting it. It's become mindless knitting, which is brilliant for the tube or in front of the television. I'm so familiar with the chart now, even though it's a huge chart. There's a logic and a formula to it. So even though it does alter as it goes along that huge chart, it's really easy to know where you are in it, and once you get to know the pattern up here, it's very, very simple. And every few rows you get 4 rows in a row which are just green, black, green, black, green, black, green, black all the way across, so there's plenty of time off, as it were. I love it. I really, it feels nice. It's good. It's good and sturdy. It's not fluffy and warm that way. It's warm because it's got structure to it. I think this is going to be one of my favourite pieces that I've ever knit. To wear, anyway, practically, I think that may be true. I absolutely love it. But I want it to be really long. And I've got plenty of yarn left. So this is my second skein of each colour, and there's loads left. So it won't be a problem to do a whole other repeat. So that's definitely the plan. So that's all my knitting, I'm afraid. That's everything I have to say. However, I do want to say this. I have been toying with the idea for a long time of doing a Sockmatician podcast Knitalong. So why don't we make it happen? Christmas is coming. I hate to say that out loud, but it is in terms of knitting, and I'm sure many of you will be doing some Christmas knitting. So I propose to start a Sockmatician podcast Knitalong, and to enter, there will be prizes, of course there will be prizes, one of which, here we go, one of which will be the scarf made by my Auntie Sheila's yarn. I'll make sure there's some prizes that will be more suitable for boys as well. And I'm making this up as I go along. What we'll need to do is, starting as soon as this is live, so from now until Christmas Day, there's going to be a knit-along. Yeah, I think we'll leave it till Christmas. We'll keep it going, and we'll just have the thread going. And the only rules are, it needs to be one of my patterns. And because that is quite restrictive, it's my podcast, it's my knit-along, I can say that. But because it's quite restrictive, I am going to put a special coupon into my Ravelry store, and it'll be, the coupon code will be Christmas Knitalong, Christmas spelt in full, Knitalong. There it is. Don't know why I'm spelling it out. I've got the technology. Christmas Knitalong, and it'll give you 50% off any of my patterns. How about that? And that coupon will be active for all of September and the first 2 weeks of October. So after that, there'll be plenty of time to get on and knit stuff, but if you want to purchase any of my patterns in order to take part in the knit-along, then you'll need to get in before then if you want to take advantage of the 50% discount. After that, you are more than welcome to buy the pattern at full price. I have to be able to afford Christmas presents too. So there we are. I'll start a thread in the group. It'll be the Sockmatician Christmas Knit-along thread, and this will be the Sockmatician Christmas Knit-along. So all you need to do is knit one of my patterns. Please get in there. In order to qualify, I'll need to see that you're casting on sort of after this. So this is the 13th of September. So I'm not going to open it up to people who... Okay, I'm not going to open it up to people who have already finished Sockmatician patterns, but I am going to open it up to people who are currently knitting Sockmatician patterns, because I think some of my things take a long time to knit, and that wouldn't be fair otherwise. So if you've already got a piano scarf on the go, for example, then you'll qualify. Yep, there we go, those are the rules. So current or pending Sockmatician patterns all qualify. Socks or double knitting or anything, any of the other things that I've knitted. There's a little mitered kite there, that would count. There's a Mobius chunky cabled cowl, which is lots of fun, and if you haven't seen that already, check that one out, because it's a really quick, easy knit. And between now and Christmas Day, as long as you get finished and posted the pictures in the thread by the end of Christmas Day, who cares, it's by Christmas, then you'll qualify, and we'll have some lovely pattern prizes. So I will probably give away some patterns. I will give away some nice things as well. So I'll get my thinking cap on about that. There we are. That's a knit-along. I'm quite excited about that. I don't know really how knit-alongs work. I've never taken part in one. I've certainly never hosted one before. So if I'm doing it all wrong, that's how it goes. Now I want to talk about the grammar round. Oh, by the way, I have no finished objects. No photos. No. The grammar rant has become very popular, and people are posting quite a lot of stuff in the thread on my group about the grammar rant. I really, really like it. Some people, Laurie Phoenix from, where are you, Laurie? From Minnesota. She hates it when her big bugbears are things written incorrectly. And till, as an abbreviation of until, is her big bugbear. She's okay with not putting the apostrophe in. Are you? Is it? That was really dull. I'm just reading this. I'm so sorry. Dead space on the podcast. Till, she talks about. Okay, she's talking about the difference between until and till, and TIL versus apostrophe, or TIL. What's wrong with me? This is the worst piece of presenting anyone has ever seen. I'm so sorry. It says here, till as a time increment. So she hates the use of the double L because till is a register. Laurie, I'm still a bit confused about this myself. Do you mind it when people don't put the apostrophe in? Because I would. I'm going to be there till Friday. It is until Friday, so it would need its missing letters apostrophe. Now, this next one, I know I pronounced this wrongly before. Ribeiro, I have no idea. Isa from Portugal. Now, Isa was talking about how she, as a non-native English speaker, she doesn't have she just doesn't know enough English to have grammar rants, but she has them in her own language. And it seems that there's two words which are very, very similar in Portuguese that mean very different things, which are starting to become used interchangeably, and that would annoy me as well. And it's devido and derivado are the two verbs. One means due to, and one means derived from. So they are very, very different, and apparently people are starting to use them interchangeably, which is not good. She also says, P.S. I hope that my grammar mistakes in English did not set anyone else's teeth on edge. Not a single one. It's quite a long post. You can't see it, but you see it. There it is. Quite a long post, and no grammar mistakes. One little spelling mistake. No grammar mistakes. That could be a typo. Janie as well from Janie from England. It just says, it doesn't say anything more specific than that. Janie says, could we please stop saying so fun? It is such fun or so funny. And she's absolutely right. Oh, that's so fun. No. I agree with you, Janie. It needs to be such fun or so funny. And when people say it's even funner. Oh no, that can stop. What else is? People less and fewer. The idea that if you can count the noun, you use fewer, and if it's a substance or an abstract noun, it's less. That's a common one. A lot of people have problems with that. Another people have stopped using me and replaced it with I instead. Now this is similar to the pronoun rant I had at the beginning of this section 2 episodes ago about reflexive pronouns. Here's a picture of Bob and I. It's incorrect. Some people say, yes, but here's a picture of Bob and me. So, no, that's right. And of course, the rule is, if it's you wouldn't say Bob and me went to the shops, but you would say our mother visited Bob and me. Of course you would. So why is one Bob and I and one Bob and me? Well, it's all about the case of the sentence, whether you're the subject or the object of the sentence. And if you're the subject, you're the person who's doing the thing. So if I went to the shops, you wouldn't say me went to the shops, you would say I went to the shops. So if there's Bob as well, it's Bob and I went to the shops, not Bob and me. Because me is not the subject, me is the pronoun for the object. Now the object is something where something happens at or to something. I'm paraphrasing this, I know there's more to it than that, but just in basically simple terms. So my mother came to visit me. My mother is the subject because she's the person doing the visiting. I'm the object, so my mother came to visit me. So if Bob was there as well, my mother came to visit Bob and me. Or me and Bob, it doesn't matter. Both are perfectly correct, but you wouldn't say my mother came to visit Bob and I, because I is the subject, not the object. And your mother is the subject of that sentence. So if all of that freaks you out and you don't understand about subjects and objects, that's absolutely fine. There's a very simple way of remembering it. Take out the other person, and would you say I or me? Me went to the shops. No. So it must be I went to the shops. So therefore it must be Bob and I went to the shops. Then my mother came to visit me. Therefore my mother came to visit me and Bob. Or Bob and me. So just take out the other person, and whichever one you would say without it is correct for when you say it with it. Does that make sense? That's not even the grammar round for this one. We're still... No, here's one. We've got a hospital perhaps, but an hotel and an historic event. This is Porthia, wishing TV presenters would get it right. It's interesting, isn't it? Because some things become quite archaic in their usage. Like the fact that we don't pronounce the H in honest or honesty, so you are an honest man rather than a honest man. I would say a hospital, I might say a hotel, I'm spending the night in a hotel, even though I know traditionally it was an hotel or an hotel, because it comes from French, an hotel. The an thing has been very fluid over the centuries. The fruit orange, after which the colour is named, didn't used to be called orange. The noun used to be, look here it is, my imaginary orange. It used to be Norwich, and the N, when you say a Norwich, has over time migrated from being attached to the noun to going to be attached to the article, the indefinite article, the a or the an. So it's gone from a Norwich to an orange. And the same thing has happened with the word apron. It used to be called a napron, and now it's an apron. So these things do change. And obviously language evolves with popular usage. So if it is difficult, because I am the purist and I'm the one having the grammar rant here, but part of me says, well, there has to be room for change as well. It's really tricky. It's really, really tricky. I'm not sure which side of the fence I sit on that one. And then Liz. Hello, Liz Kimber. I need to knit me a dunce's hat. I'm dyslexic. I spend all my spare effort typing the right letter, I hope so, to the point the grammar I was taught is incredibly rudimentary and basically non-existent. Well, do you know what, Liz? That's absolutely fine. And nobody wants to put you in a position, or anybody else who struggles with this kind of stuff, or anyone who doesn't care about this kind of stuff. Nobody wants to put you in a position of feeling awkward or feeling that you have to watch what you type when you're in my group. I honestly don't care about it that much. The whole point of the grammar rant is it is only fun, and I am being deliberately glib when I get on my high horse about these kinds of things. I would hate to think that anybody was feeling awkward or uncomfortable about it, or feeling that they were somehow inferior or being picked upon. That's genuinely not what it is. By all means, join in the fun. Tell us what things you hate in language yourself. From a dyslexic's point of view, actually, here's a question for you, Liz. I'd like you to answer this. From a dyslexic's point of view, I'm not dyslexic, I don't understand. What's it like to be in a world where people expect a certain level of knowledge about grammar, punctuation, spelling, all of those things. And is there anything that you think that we non-dyslexic people could learn from dyslexic people? There's an interesting thought. What would you like to share with us that we should take on for ourselves? So today's grammar rant is one that comes up time and time again. Correct and incorrect use of the apostrophe. It's basic, it's fundamental, it's not as complicated as people think. There are basically two rules, two places where you use an apostrophe. One is to denote possession, and the other is to be put in the place of missing letters. There are, of course, exceptions to that rule, those rules. But in terms of denoting possession, so one would say, this is my hat, right? I knitted this hat. So if someone else would talk about it, this is Nathan's hat. There's one of me, there's one hat, so we don't have to worry about anything. The apostrophe denotes that it's my hat, Nathan's hat. It's not that there are two Nathans, that would be a plural, but you put the apostrophe before the S and it makes it Nathan's hat. Now, if you have one cat and it has some cream, the cream is the cat's cream, and that's cat apostrophe S. So what do you do if there's more than one cat and they all have the cream, and the cream belongs to all the cats? Well, you make the word plural, cats, and then you put the apostrophe after it. So the cat's cream, C-A-T-S apostrophe, would denote that there's cream belonging to more than one cat. So that's the one that people struggle with most, I think, knowing whether the apostrophe goes inside or outside the S. And if it's singular, it's on the inside, and if it's plural, it's on the outside. It's actually not as difficult as people think. The other place is for missing letters: don't, won't, can't, shouldn't. In all of those positions, the apostrophe takes the place of the missing do not, would not, should not. The O of not is missing, so the apostrophe goes in there to denote that. That's kind of it. The exception is pronouns. So he is a pronoun for him, or for a male object or person. And if this hat belongs to him, it's his hat. So like it's Nathan's hat, Nathan's has an apostrophe, but his clearly doesn't. It's his hat, hers, it's her hat, it's hers, the hat is hers. So it's another one that is, being a pronoun does not have an apostrophe. And the one that trips people up is its. So if the cat owns some cream, then the cream is its cream, it being the cat. That's its cream. And the reason why that's tricky, I haven't really planned this out, I'm just falling over myself here. The reason why that's tricky for a lot of people is because its can also be a contraction of it is. So you would have an apostrophe there. But when it's a pronoun, you don't. It's that simple. So the phrase that I see most commonly spelled all the time is one that we use all the time. If you want to say that you've already put something in the post, it's on its way. It's on its way. Now the word its happens twice in that sentence, but the first time it's a contraction of it is. It is on its way. So that does have an apostrophe, but the second one is the pronoun. It's on its way, the way belonging to it. So it does not. So the first one has an apostrophe and the second one doesn't. Other than that, other than pronouns, it's that straightforward. Possession or missing letters, you're done. And if it's possession, singular or plural, that tells you whether it's inside or outside. That's it. End of grammar rant. Now let's move on in a higgledy-piggledy order to everyone's favourite, my least favourite thing to say. What's that? Oh, I see, the voice is still not working. Been coughing so badly over the last 2 months that my voice is a little bit damaged and needs some time to repair, so I don't have any use of fun stuff, so I'll go back to whispering, what's that? This week's What's Tat. Now, which one haven't I shown you today? I haven't even planned this out. Oh, do you know what? It's this one. This is this week's What's Tat, and it is an Adinkran symbol. The Adinkra symbols, I've got lots of them. There's about 9 on my arm. There's one, there's another, sorry about the lighting, there's another one there, that's one, that's one, that's one, that's one. Moving down, I've got Tobono there as well. So this one here, the Adinkra culture, is where, in West Africa, where Ghana and Sierra Leone and places like that are now, they have this wonderful rich history of these symbols that all mean fabulous things. And they batik and print them onto fabrics, and they carve them into stones and earthenware and stuff. And they mean lovely things. And this one is called Owuo Atwedi, and I don't profess to know how to pronounce it properly, but Owuo Atwedi, and it is roughly translated as the ladder of death. Now that sounds like, I've said in the past that my arm is intended to be incredibly positive, and it sounds like that's quite a negative thing, but actually it's kind of there as a reminder of people who've gone before, and it's a reminder to live a good life in this life before death comes. Let me just find the actual details for you. Owuo Atwedi. I don't even know how to spell it, so I'm guessing that Google will be able to help me. Here it is. Yes. Oh no, I spelled it almost correctly. The ladder of death. It's a symbol of mortality, which doesn't sound too good until you think it's a reminder of the transitory nature of existence in this world and of the imperative to live a good life, to be a worthy soul in the afterlife. So it's about doing good, and it's about, for me, it's also, mortality is not just about my own mortality, but it's about that of other people, and remembering people who are no longer with us, and that's a good symbol for remembrance there, but also just to remind me to be a good person, whether that's in preparation for the afterlife or just because we have a finite amount of time on here. Let's do some good with it. So that is this week's What's Tat. It's the ladder of death. It's Owuo Atwedi, and I think it's quite a special one. I think it's always good to be reminded to be a good person, isn't it? That's the plan anyway. Remind yourself to be a good person and live the life of a good person. You can't go far wrong. So there we are. I'm going to wrap things up. This has been one where I haven't referred to any notes at all. Please do join in with the podcast Knitalong, the Sockmatician Christmas Knitalong. Head over to the group and Ravelry, post your cast-on photographs in there as soon as you can. Let's get those things up and running. And remember that the Christmas Knitalong coupon code will give you 50% off all of my patterns. That's all of them between now and that includes anything that I add in the meantime. Oh, because I'm in the process of finally got around to taking photographs of these bad boys. There we go. The gilt socks are now photographed, and I have formulated them into the pattern, and as soon as I've finished editing this and while it's uploading, I'm going to be uploading the pattern and launching it. It's going to be £3 on Ravelry, and ignore this. This is the bad one. This is the one it should look like. There we are. It's £3 on Ravelry, but with the coupon, it will be a mere £1.50. So anything I do put up between now and the second week of October will also be subject. Will also be subject to the 50% discount for Knitalong users, participants. So head over there, do that, join in, join the fun. Please comment on each other's knitting and share as much love as you can. I think a Knitalong is a lovely way of getting people working together. I'm looking forward to getting this one started. I am, of course, doing my own Knitalong with my scarves here. I will do some more on this one. I'm really looking forward to getting back to that. This one is always great fun. And as I've said before, although this podcast is now a finished object, remember, life is a work in progress. Just take it one stitch at a time. Happy knitting, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.